They say you can tell a lot about a man by the seat he chooses. So when I sat down in 24B, middle seat, economy, 2 rows from the back, no one looked twice. Which was the point. The woman in 24C barely glanced up. The man in 24A sighed and muttered, "Figures," whatever that meant. I had no briefcase, no Rolex, no suit. Just black jeans, a soft Henley, and a Delta baseball cap I pulled low. Not Delta, the airline, my airline. Yeah. I own it. Not all of it, of course. But enough. Enough that if I picked up the phone, the flight attendants would snap to attention, the pilots would probably come shake my hand, and the regional VP would be in my inbox by landing. But I didn't do that, because I wasn't here to be recognized. I was here to see what it felt like when I wasn't. I started in aviation 20 years ago. Worked the night shift at baggage claim while finishing my MBA online. Most people assumed I was a porter. A few tipped me. What they didn't know was I could already quote FAA regulations better than some supervisors. I kept a notebook in my back pocket and wrote down every system flaw I saw: delays, crew fatigue, customer complaints. By the time I was 35, I'd launched a regional airline with 4 leased planes and a dream to turn service into something human again. They laughed at first. Called me crazy. Then we hit 97% on-time departure rates. Then we went carbon neutral before the majors even noticed it was a trend. Then the board of a legacy airline asked me to consult and then lead a division. 5 years later, I was named CEO. And still, when I walk into an airport in jeans and brown skin, I'm mistaken for ground crew. This flight was personal. We'd had a complaint about the boarding process: too slow, too impersonal, too much hierarchy in how we treated people based on what seat they paid for. So I booked the cheapest ticket I could find. No upgrades. No VIP tags. No assistant. Just me in 24B. The flight attendant smiled politely, her tone clipped and efficient. "Please make sure your tray table is up, sir." No eye contact. When she handed drinks out, she skipped me at first, then circled back. "Oh, I'm sorry. Ginger ale?" I nodded. She didn't ask if I wanted ice. The woman in 24C struck up a conversation halfway through the flight. She was headed to a tech conference. Bright, sharp, confident. She asked me what I did. "I'm in aviation," I said. "Oh, like a pilot?" "Not quite." "You're in engineering?" "Maintenance?" "No." "Management." She smiled, then leaned in a little. "Like middle management?" I smiled back. "Something like that." She nodded and returned to her Kindle. Later, she showed me a graph on her tablet, something about predictive fuel analytics. I nodded politely. "That's the problem with these airlines," she said. "They're so behind on innovation. All run by the same old-school execs who've never sat in economy." I laughed under my breath. "I know exactly what you mean." We landed 5 minutes early. A good sign. I waited until the crowd thinned, then stepped into the galley and quietly asked the lead flight attendant her name. She looked confused. "Is everything okay, sir?" I nodded. "More than okay." "You were professional and calm." "I'd like to commend your crew." She blinked. "Thank you." I handed her a card with my name. Her face changed. I nodded. "Tell your captain he flew a perfect descent profile. And tell your team and ops the turnaround time in Boston is finally under 18 minutes. I walked off the plane before she could say another word. On the tarmac, I passed a group of ramp workers. One of them looked up, eyes narrowing. Then he smiled wide. "Micah Reed?" I smiled back. He shouted to his co-worker. "That's the boss, man. That's the boss." I gave him a wave, then kept walking toward the terminal. They didn't know who I was in 24B, and that's exactly why I sat there. Because until you've been invisible, you don't understand how systems fail the unseen. And until you've been mistaken for anything but what you are, you don't understand the power of owning the story and flying it forward. The next morning, I walked into the glass tower downtown, where our shareholders met quarterly. The boardroom smelled like leather and hesitation. 15 men. 2 women. None of them black. I've sat at that table for 3 years now. But today, I wasn't just a face on a quarterly earnings slide. I was bringing change they hadn't asked for. "Why did you fly economy?" one of the board members asked, barely veiling his irritation. To remind myself how our customers feel, I replied. He chuckled. You're the CEO. You don't need to do PR stunts. I let the silence settle. It's not PR when the experience is real, I said. And if we're going to be the first legacy airline to truly rebuild trust, we have to start where the people sit. Another board member cleared his throat. There's concern that you've blurred boundaries. Your memo on eliminating first-class only perks didn't land well with some of our international partners. Good, I said. It wasn't written to land well. It was written to land fairly. They didn't like that. You could feel it. The unspoken belief in the room that I was getting too bold. That I was doing too much. That I should be grateful just to sit there, not try to shift the table. They wanted a black CEO who played nice, who smiled for the press photos, who talked about diversity while still preserving hierarchy. They didn't want a CEO who remembered where he came from. They didn't want one who wore Nikes under his tailored suit, or who quoted his grandmother in strategy meetings. But I am all of that, and more. One board member finally said it. You were brought in to innovate, Micah. Not to dismantle the brand. I looked at him, straight through him. If the brand can't survive fairness, then it was never built to last. We moved on to performance slides. All metrics up: net promoter score, employee retention, on-time rates, stock price. The irony? My changes were working. The numbers loved me, even if they didn't. But still, one of them asked, "Do you think you're pushing too fast? Too many changes, too soon?" I leaned forward. I think for most of you, the changes only feel fast because for so long, nothing moved at all. After the meeting, one of the assistants, black woman, early 30s, smart, walked up to me in the hallway. You don't know me, she said, but I just want you to know. I've never been prouder to work here. I nodded. I know exactly who you are. I read your proposal on multilingual safety announcements. You think differently. Her eyes widened. You read that? I read everything, I said. Especially the voices they try to skip. Later that week, I was asked to give a keynote at an aviation summit. They introduced me as the first black CEO of a major U.S. airline. I stepped up to the mic, took a breath, and then I said, I'm not here to be the first. I'm here to make sure I'm not the last. You see, leadership isn't about the seat you sit in. It's about what you see from that seat and whether you're willing to shake the plane until everyone gets a window. They didn't know I owned the airline, and some of them still don't understand what that really means. But they will, because I'm flying this thing on my terms now, and I don't need first class to know I belong in the cockpit.